arbitrary path of his own that especially upset the outer planets, who had granted Tiamat the right to bring forth new planets? EA asked. He took the problem to Angel, the giant Saturn. All that Tiamat had plotted, to him he repeated. She has set up an assembly, and is furious with rage. She has added matchless weapons, has born monster gods, with all 11 of this kind she has brought forth. From among the gods who formed her assembly, she has elevated Kingu, her firstborn, made him chief. She has given him a tablet of destinies, fastened it on his breast. Turning to EA, Angel asked him whether he could Golo slay Kingu. The reply is lost due to a break in the tablets, but apparently EA did not satisfy Angel. For the continuing narrative has Angel turning to Anu Uranus Low find out whether he would go and stand up to Tiamat. But Anu was unable to face her and turned back. In the agitated heavens, a confrontation builds. One god lifter another steps aside. Will no one to battle with the raging Tiamat? Marduk, having passed Neptune and Uranus, is now nearing Anshar Saturn, and his extended rings. This gives Anshar an idea. He, who is potent, shall be our avenger. Ho, who is keen in battle, Marduk, the hero. Coming within reach of Saturn's rings, he kissed the lips of Anshar. Marduk answers, if I, indeed, as your avenger, am to vanquish Tiamat, save your lives, convene an assembly, to proclaim my destiny supreme. The condition was audacious but simple. Marduk, and his destiny, his orbit around the sun, were to be supreme among all the celestial gods. It was then that Gaga, Anshar/Saturn's satellite, and the future Pluto, was loosened from his course. Anshar opened his mouth to Gaga, his counselor, a word he addressed. Be on thy way, Gaga, take the stand, before the gods, and that which I shall tell thee repeat thou unto them. Passing by the other gods/planets, Gaga urged them to fix your decrees for Marduk. The decision was as anticipated. The gods were only too eager to have someone else go to settle the score for them. Marduk is king. They shouted and urged him to lose no more time. Go and cut off the life of Tiamat. The curtain now rises on Act IV, the celestial battle. The gods have decreed Marduk's destiny. Their combined gravitational pull has now determined Marduk's orbital path so that he can go but one way, toward a battle, a collision with Tiamat. As befits a warrior, Marduk armed himself with a variety of weapons. He filled his body with a blazing flame. He constructed a bow, attached there to an arrow. In front of him he set the lightning, and he then made a net to enfold Tiamat therein. These are common names for what could only have been celestial phenomena, the discharge of electrical bolts, as the two planets converged, the gravitational pull and net of one upon the other. But Marduk's chief weapons were his satellites, the four winds with which Uranus had provided him. When Marduk passed by that planet, south wind, north wind, east wind, west wind, passing now by the giants, Saturn and Jupiter, and subjected to their tremendous gravitational pull, Marduk brought forth three more satellites, Evil Wind, Whirlwind, and Matchless Wind. Using his satellites as a storm chariot, he sent forth the winds that he had brought forth, the 7 of them. The adversaries were ready for battle. The Lord went forth, followed his course, towards the raging Tiamat he set his face. The Lord approached to scan the inner side of Tiamat, the scheme of Kingu, her consort, to perceive. But as the planets drew nearer each other, Marduk's course became erratic. As he looks on, his course becomes upset, his direction is distracted, his doings are confused. Even Marduk's satellites began to veer off course when the gods, his helpers, who were marching at his side, saw the valiant Kingu. Blurred became their vision. Were the combatants to miss each other after all? But the die was cast, the course is irrevocably set on collision. Tiamat emitted a roar. The Lord raised a flooding storm, his mighty weapon. As Marduk came ever closer, Tiamat's fury grew. The roots of her legs shook back and forth. She commenced to cast spells against Marduk, the same kind of celestial waves he had earlier used against Tapshu and Mamu. But Marduk kept coming at her. Tiamat and Marduk, the wisest of the gods, advanced against one another. They pressed on to single combat. They approached for battle. The epic now turns to the description of the celestial battle, in the aftermath of which heaven and earth were created. The Lord spread out his net to enfold her, the evil wind, the rearmost, he unleashed at her face. As she opened her mouth, Tiamat, to devour him, he drove in the evil wind so that she closed not her lips. The fierce storm winds then charged her belly, her body became distended, her mouth had opened wide. He shot there through an arrow, it tore her belly, it cut through her insides, tore into her womb. Having thus subdued her, her life breath he extinguished. Here, then, is a most original theory explaining the celestial puzzle still confronting us. An unstable solar system, made up of the Sun and 9 planets, was invaded by a large, comet-like planet from outer space. It first encountered Neptune, as it passed by Uranus, the giant Saturn, and Jupiter. Its course was profoundly bent inward toward the solar system's center, and it brought forth 7 satellites. It was unalterably set on a collision course with Tiamat, the next planet in line. A Marduk swines colliding with Tiamat and her host led by Kingu. But the 2 planets did not collide, a fact of cardinal astronomical importance. It was the satellites of Marduk I had smashed into Tiamat, and not Marduk himself. They distended Tiamat's body, made in her a wide cleavage. Through these fissures in Tiamat, Marduk shot an arrow, a divine lightning, an immense bolt of electricity that lumped as a spark from the energy-charged Marduk, the planet that was filled with brilliance. Finding its way into Tiamat's innards, it extinguished her life breath, neutralized Tiamat's own electric and magnetic forces and holds, and extinguished them. The first encounter between Marduk and Tiamat left Hecate fissured and lifeless, but her final fate was still to be determined by future encounters between the two. Kingu, latter of Tiamat's satellites, was also to be dealt with separately. But the fate of the other 10 smaller satellites of Tiamat was determined at once. After he had slain Tiamat, the leader, her band was shattered, her host broken up. The gods, her helpers who marched at her side, trembling with fear, turned their backs about so as to save and preserve their lives. Can we identify this shattered, broken host that trembled and turned their backs about, reversed their direction? By doing so we offer an explanation to yet another I7/Li of our solar system, the phenomenon of the comets. Tiny globes of matter, they are often referred to as the solar system's rebellious members, for they appear to obey none of the normal rules of the road. The orbits of the planets around the Sun are, with the exception of Pluto, almost circular. The orbits of the comets are elongated, and in most instances very much so, to the extent that some of them disappear from our view for hundreds or thousands of years. The planets, with the exception of Pluto, orbit the Sun in the same general plane. The comets orbit in many diverse planes. Most significant, while all the planets known to us circle the Sun in the same counterclockwise direction, many comets move in the reverse direction. Astronomers are unable to say what force, what event created the comets and threw them into their unusual orbits. Our answer: Marduk. Sweeping in the reverse direction, in an orbital plane of his own, he shattered, broke the host of Tiamat into smaller comets, and affected them by his gravitational pull, his so-called net thrown. Into the net they found themselves ensnared. The whole band of demons that had marched on her side he cast into fetters, their hands he bound. Tightly encircled, they could not escape. After the battle was over, Marduk took away from Kingu the tablet of destinies, Kingu's independent orbit, and attached it to his own. Marduk's breast, his course was bent into permanent solar orbit. From that time on, Marduk was bound always to return to the scene of the celestial battle. Having vanquished Tiamat, Marduk sailed on in the heavens, out into space, around the Sun, and back to retrace his passage by the outer planet Ca/Neptune, whose desire Marduk achieved, and Saturn, whose triumph Marduk established. Then his new orbital path returned Marduk to the scene of his triumph, to strengthen his hold on the vanquished gods, Tiamat and Kingu. As the curtain is about to rise on Akvi, it will be here, and only here, though this has not hitherto been realized, that the biblical tale of Genesis joins the Mesopotamian epic of creation, for it is only at this point that the tale of the creation of earth and heaven really began. Completing his first ever orbit around the Sun, Marduk then returned to Tiamat, whom he had subdued. The Lord was to view her lifeless body. To divide the monster he then artfully planned. then, as a muscle.